if we know that boys are at a higher risk of underachieving at school, of behavior issues, potentially mental health, etc., then why wait? Why not equip yourself and your child early to prevent it? Important we equip them. You know, we equip them with learning about how to do maths and English. Why not equip them on how to manage the language of emotion, which is so critical in de-escalating situations in a classroom?
Hello, Sonia Shaljean. Thank you so much for joining us. You lead the group Lads Need Dads, and that focuses, as I understand it, primarily on fatherlessness and helping fatherless boys. But what general lessons do you have for us? What we're doing is a more general inquiry into boys' educational underachievement. And I think some of the things that you do might be relevant to what we've been trying to do.
The thing that I would really get people to consider is reading. Reading for boys is absolutely critical. It's the kind of the foundation for learning. So we actually implemented a new project after COVID and the impact on education. And we've got a scheme called Reading Mentors, which not only introduces boys to reading and actually has a male read to them, which is a bonus. In this day and age, we live such busy lives, but boys in particular don't get access to often males within the school setting, particularly primary education. It's very limited access to male teachers. So sending male mentors in once a week for a period of up to 3 months leading up to their SATs in year 6, we found has been really beneficial, because within the session, we don't just read. We teach the boys about how to understand and manage their emotions and other people's. So we're teaching emotional literacy as well, which is really key for boys, because often, because of the testosterone that impacts them when they're going through puberty, they've got this extra energy, which can be mistaken as, bad behavior or just disruptive behavior in the classroom, and then they get penalized for it, when actually it's because they've got a lot more energy and need to move around more than girls. So if we can teach boys about how to manage their emotions as early as possible through the tool of reading and using male mentors, we're kind of doing 3 things at once: providing access to good role models, and emotional literacy, plus the tool of reading, which is key for boys because they're behind girls in reading. Well, it's always been that fact. So we can help them in those areas. We're giving them that step up that they need in education, I think.
That sounds great. Do you find that it's just reading, or is it that boys just don't know enough words? I mean, there seem to be 2 components to it. One is that boys come into primary school with less words because they've used less words. And
that's a good point. That is a good point. And that is why we specifically read to the boy rather than the boy reading to the mentor. I know there's lots of mentor schemes across the country where they get volunteers to go in and read with the child, and the child reads to the adult. Where we are different is that we read to the boy, and it might be a book that they may not be able to manage themselves. So we're opening them up to new words, new vocabulary, that they may not have even considered before. So that's the beauty. We kind of open up, their literacy skills and their use of language, really, and they can talk to their mentor about, what does that word mean? I've never heard that before. So they're learning in that way. You don't always have to understand it when you read it. You can be read to and open up the world of words to them. Does that make sense?
Yes, indeed. Now, the other thing, one of our earlier speakers, Trevor Lloyd, said that he thought that some of the bad behavior that you see is down to poor language skills, and that the the wordy child can explain to the other child or to an adult that they're upset about something or don't like something, but those with less words have to do an action. So they might run away or hit or grab or something like that. I'm interested in when you say that these reading mentors teach emotional regulation. How do they do that?
So it's like a language. If we ask a boy how they're feeling, they often don't know. It can be either indifference, anger, sad, but there's a wealth of different types of emotions out there that often they don't understand are there, or actually it's like you said, that the lack of understanding around the words, it's actually around the different feelings as well. So if we can get them to understand that, and we do it literally very simply. First of all, we start off with like a set of emotion cards where it's got a face and the word and then the meaning on it. And we'll go through every single one of them, say 36 different ones, for example, and work through each one and get them to understand what it means and when they last felt like that, or if somebody felt like that, this is how it might look. So it's almost like teaching a foreign language to them. You know, if we're not taught a language, we can't expect to understand that language. So it's the same with emotions. If boys can understand these different feelings, and actually that's what fuels the behavior, that's the problem. Often they're chastised for the behavior at school without fully understanding what fuels that behavior. So if you get behind the feeling, then you get behind the behavior. So I don't think it's lack of words. I think it's lack of understanding of the feelings behind the behavior. And if we can open boys up to that, so they can express, actually, I'm feeling embarrassed that I don't understand this lesson. And because of that, that's why I acted out that way. And next time, maybe I can just have the courage to speak to a teacher at the end or in the break and explain how I feel. But, you know, that takes a bit of maturity. And often when you're young, the fight or flight emotion will kick in potentially, and you acting out the amygdala a lot when you're a young person anyway, because the prefrontal cortex isn't fully grown, that thinking and planning part of our brain. So young people often act out of the amygdala, the emotional part. So that's why it's important we equip them. You know, we equip them with learning about how to do maths and English. Why not equip them on how to manage the language of emotion, which is so critical in de-escalating situations in a classroom, and can stop you learning, because if you're upset or anxious, it cuts off that prefrontal, the learning part of the brain. So you won't be able to take in what they're saying anyway, the teachers. So if we can get children to not feel anxious and stressed, then they'll learn better.
So you get your reading mentors to do that with the boys?
Yeah. From day one, we have the sessions an hour, and the first 20 minutes is like a check-in. So how are you doing today? How are you feeling? Let's look at all the cards, lay them all out and choose one. Sometimes they choose 2 or 3, or sometimes we turn the cards over and we'll randomly pick one and say, oh, when did you last feel excited? Give me an example. So it's really reinforcing these different feelings so that they can then understand themselves and be able to articulate that to other people.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing you do is you do mentoring more generally, I understand. That's certainly something which is coming through from our head teachers who are more successful than other schools in improving the learning of boys. And what they're aware of is that boys exist in a culture, and if you don't have positive male role models, then you can't emulate something like that. So I understand that you do take a similar approach. Is that right?
Absolutely. I think, you know, school needs to reflect society that we live in, and it doesn't, does it? Because there's more females in schools than males. So I think that's why our work's so successful when we do start out in schools. We run a 6-month program in school called Equip, which explores the different issues that impact boys as they're growing up. We cover every topic, from managing stress, anxiety, to managing conflict, to understanding what it is to be a man. We've been running sessions on understanding what it is to be a man for the past 8 years. It's only now, because of the whole Andrew Tate scenario, that it's flooding the schools, isn't it? This concern about let's address toxic masculinity in our young men. But actually, I won't get onto that subject because that's a whole subject on its own. But we need to be recognizing boys' needs, not because it will impact girls and others, but just also because they deserve to have their needs met, as well as it impacting others. So yeah, we cover loads of different subjects with the boys in school, and it might be their only access to men in a group situation. But we're also implementing a new service this September. You've heard it here first. It's called Lad Pods, and this will be a weekly group, a wellbeing group for boys with absent fathers, but also those lacking positive male role models, because our work has always opened it up a bit, because there are some boys that don't have supportive fathers in their life or at home. So this is a group which will meet every week, and it will be an emotional health and well-being group. So this is really purely to teach emotional literacy from a very young age in year 7. Although we do it within reading mentors in year 6, we want to continue that so that secondary school boys are taking that throughout their journey with them. And I can see it actually being really popular. And I think I'd like to see lad pods in every school with every boy, whether fatherless or not, because I think they need to have that language of emotions, being able to be emotionally literate. We all need it. Girls need it too.
It's just that the boys are worse at it because of our genetic disposition to be stoical, to
That's
push
right.
down. And we know how that manifests later in life. So do you find a positive reception from schools, or is it a bit of a battle to get them to help to support your work?
Schools are really open now to having as much help as they can, I think, with their young men. And I think, again, that has been triggered by the whole toxic masculinity debate and the whole, it has. I think they're starting to look at the needs of boys. So in a way, I'm quite grateful this has happened, because it's started to look at the needs of our young men. But you know what? The barrier that we found isn't necessarily schools. It's the mothers of the boys, believe it or not, which is where we want to turn our attention to over the next couple of years, is to raise an awareness with mothers, because sometimes I think maybe single mums might see what we do as a judgment, that they can't do it without the male input. And I always find we've always got to be defending what we do and saying, look, this is to equip you, this is to help you. We actually support single mothers and walk alongside them. The thing is, when boys are 10 and 11 and it's just mum and the boy, issues may not present at that point. So they're thinking, oh, he's got no problem, he's all right without his dad, he hasn't shown any issues, I don't need lads need dads. And then year 8 and 9, when they're 13 and 14, oh, where's lads need dads? We need to refer him. If only people could just realize that what we're doing is early intervention to prevent potential problems, and actually trust that we know what we're doing. That actually, if we can equip young men as early as possible, then they won't be having that phone call from school saying little Billy's being disruptive in class and he's going to be excluded for his behavior. Actually, be more forward thinking and trust the process. And if we know that boys are at a higher risk of underachieving at school, of behavior issues, potentially mental health, etc., then why wait till it happens? Why not equip yourself and your child early to prevent it? It's just the same with health, isn't it? If we know smoking kills, don't wait till you've got cancer before you stop smoking. Stop, don't even smoke. So it's the same thing, but that is the catch-22. We get some mothers who really get behind it and want their son on, and then there's others that look at us with skepticism and think, why on earth would I need a man? Look at his dad. Why would I want another one? But actually, we're not providing dads for these boys. We're providing access to good men that might break that negative perception of what men are and help that boy see that not all men are like his dad if he's been let down or if he was abusive. We're introducing them to good men. So it's just that insight that sometimes we find is the barrier for our work to be fully accepted and fully embraced.
That's interesting, because one of the messages that comes from the 3 head teachers who improve things for boys is that they don't focus on masculinity. That is this idea that the problem with boys is something to do with masculinity. They haven't found that to be the case. What they've found to be the case is this lack of aspirations, lack of what you might say, what sort of a man are you going to be,
Yeah.
and also a literacy problem, and that the bad behavior is not due to masculinity, it's due to the frustration and unable to express themselves, and also being found in a situation where you're doing badly relative to your peers and you don't like that situation. And the same, they see the same behavior in girls. It's just that there are many fewer of them because of girls are better at literacy to some degree, and they're not quite so aggressive as boys. So that's really interesting. The other thing that was interesting was one of our earlier speakers said he was invited into a school to help with the year 10 boys who are underachieving, and within weeks realized that that's not where you should be operating. You should be operating at age 4 with their literacy skills, and that all that seems to come together. So my final question is, what evidence have you got that what you do works?
I guess if you look at the evidence which says that boys who grow up with absent fathers or positive male role models will underachieve at school, will potentially be more destructive, may go into offending and have mental health issues. You just need to see the boys that have completed our programs. They don't tick any of those boxes. And we work with boys long term. So I've got young men who I assessed when they were 12, who are now 21 and volunteering with us, who are, successful young men, entrepreneurs, run their own businesses. We haven't had any of our boys, go into the criminal justice system, be excluded from school, etc., if they've completed our program and stayed alongside us. So I guess that's the proof, really. Even if somebody just does a 3-month intervention with us, we still see the fruit of it later on, the feedback that we get from the schools and the mums themselves, even the boys. I remember one boy, he did a 6-month program and then he moved away, and he had lots of issues and a really troubled background. And I used to worry about him. I did used to think, I wonder what's going to happen to him now he's not under our wing, And then about 2 years ago, I got this message from him on Facebook, and he was like 17 now. And he said, I just wanted to say, I remember Lads Need Dads and the course that I did with you. And I just want to say thank you so much. It really helped me. And it really made my day, because I thought, oh, wow, that's the young man that I was really worried might slip. And actually he's doing well, and he was at college, and it really made my day. So, that's what I always say when I'm recruiting men. Don't underestimate the impact that you can have, even just by giving 1 hour a week for 3 months. You've no idea what seeds that you're planting in that boy, and aspirations definitely is one of them. And boys respond better if they're being built up, not being told how they shouldn't behave. They need to be shown what good is. They need to be encouraged and believed in. That's what produces good fruit, and that's what we do with our boys. And we persevere, and we don't give up on them, and we don't exclude them, We don't turn away when things are getting rough. We're with them through the highs and the lows, and that's the beauty of long-term work. And I'm privileged to have been able to create, I guess, something that we have, which is long-term. I just hope and pray one day that we'll be invested in and people will see, you know what, there's something here that works. We've got a vaccine in the north of Essex that I believe works in preventing, you know, boys going down the wrong path, but also building them up. And we just need that investment.
Well,
Yeah.
it's been a privilege to hear you and to hear about your work, and also a privilege to hear from these other head teachers who've done not the same work, but similar work and has similar success. And I think this is really, really helpful in drawing up our report from this inquiry and advising other schools and politicians on what they might do about it. Because the interesting thing is, a lot of people think that it's to do with negative stereotypes of masculinity. And everybody who's actually successful in the field says it isn't. And it's much what you're doing and what the schools are doing is much more achievable than trying to overcome a negative stereotype, because learning words is a practical thing that can be done. So thank you very much indeed.
No, you're welcome. And thank you for doing this inquiry. Somebody needs to do it. It needs to get done. And